And our talk of the town for today here on AM 1390 KRFO. It's been a little bit of a while, but he's back. Darren Reed from the Steele County Safe and Drug Free Coalition joins us to give us an update on what's happening. And, well, of course, the big news we had last week, but I'll let you repeat it and share it. The funding came through for you.
Yes, good morning, Lauren. We are very happy to announce to our county that the Steele County Safe and Drug Free Coalition was awarded a 5-year grant from SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse Mental Health Administration. And this funding will cover all of our activities for the next 5 years. So we are very excited about that because, of course, that means that we can continue to do the activities that we had to slow down on a little bit the last year, because last year we were unfunded federally. So we had to spend a lot of our time raising funds locally, and we are very grateful and thankful to all the people in our county that did step up to help sustain our efforts throughout the last year. But again, that pretty much kept things going on a bare bones budget. Now going forward, we're able to continue with all of our curriculum, our activities for the youth, our messaging, awareness, education in the county. So we are very happy about that and very excited.
And good timing too, because October is well, I don't want to say special month. It's a month of note for your group.
It is. October is National Substance Abuse Awareness Month, and there's a lot of reasons we need to really be aware of it. And for one, you almost cannot turn on a TV or a radio without hearing news of another opioid death. This summer we had Prince. That was here local in our state and based on fentanyl. And nationally, again, you're hearing about this all the time. And these are preventable. And we really need to start talking to our loved ones about this, because the vast majority of people that are dying from opioids, it's because they started with prescription drugs.
Is that what it? Yeah, I was gonna raise my hand because I bet there's folks like, I've heard the word opioid. I know it's a drug, but can you tell me a little more about what it entails, and then continue?
Yeah, absolutely. Opioids are the opioid-based drugs, so it could be prescription drugs. Of course, heroin is a drug that we hear about a lot. That's an opioid. That's an injectable form. That it's a street drug.
Is that the word opium you're talking?
Yes, exactly. Okay. It all derives from the opium plant. Okay. However, there are synthetic versions of it, which are man-made derivatives of it, and in some cases much stronger. And that's where we're getting to a problem, and that's why we need to be creating awareness, because people are not aware of what they're putting in their bodies. And you think that we would be alert to those things, but we're not always. So for instance, when you think of heroin is a street version, so to speak, of morphine. Morphine is a very strong drug that's very controlled, used in the hospital settings to sedate people. Now, heroin in itself can cause overdose, it can cause death. But now we have the problem of fentanyl being added to heroin by some drug dealers. Fentanyl is 70 times stronger than morphine. So now you're starting to see the problem. When somebody thinks they have heroin, but it's been cut with some fentanyl, they're having a much stronger dose, and they could overdose even easier. Now, some of the cities in the East Coast, thankfully it's not here yet that we are aware of, there's a new one called carafentanil, which is 700 times stronger than morphine. In fact, it's so deadly that when you think of table salt, 1 grain of table salt, if you had 20 grains of carafentanil that are the size of table salt, that is fatal. So think of how small that substance is. So when that's being cut into drugs, that's where you're having overdose deaths like crazy.
So is it a case of someone buying drugs and not realizing that they've been doctored, or do they purposely want something that's just going to blast them out of their mind?
No, it might be a little bit of both, but for the most case, we believe it is people are unaware of what it's been cut with. But again, the problem is at this point they're addicted, and they're going to continue to do something to feed that addiction. So it all started with an opioid-based addiction. So again, the vast majority of these we're talking about are people that got started on prescription drugs either legitimately, they had an injury, they were hurt, and they had to have a prescription drug, and then they got addicted to it. Some people, kids especially, this is where it's really dangerous, they see it at a party and they think since it's a prescription drug it must be safe, so they try it, and if they like it, they continue. And the problem with prescription drugs is it's not an unlimited supply. Doctors more now than ever are being more vigilant about prescribing them. So even if you have a prescription, at some point that doctor is going to say, I can't give you anymore. So some people might try to go to a different doctor, but that still could, because electronic monitoring, that eventually stops. Just because you can't get that anymore, if you're addicted, it doesn't mean you just quit. You're going to go find something else. Heroin is actually cheaper on the street right now, and that's where a lot of the people that are doing heroin never ever thought they would ever go down that road, but they have to turn to it. And of course, a drug dealer doesn't give you a dosage information.
You mentioned people and kids trying prescription drugs, not knowing anything. What would be the odds, say, if I just walked down the street to my neighbor and opened up his medicine cabinet and I took some of whatever prescription drugs he has? Is there a good chance I would feel something, or, I mean...
It depends on the drug. Now, of course, the drugs that are mood altering are the ones that people are looking for. Those are those opioids, the narcotics. And of course, there are some... benzodiazepines. These are the ones that are Valium type drugs, Xanax. These things, of course, can as well. And I can't remember the exact statistic, but I just heard recently it was somewhere around 60% of the people that have prescription narcotics don't use them all, and they also don't dispose of them right away. We just forget. After the pain goes away, you forget your meds even in your counter or in your cabinet or wherever you store them. And that might be the problem, where if that kid just opens it up and there's some Vicodin or there's some Oxycontins and they're like, hey, I heard about that, I could try that. So that's why we want to promote the message of that that you should store those in a safe place, lock them up, or get rid of them when you don't use them.
I've just been smiling because those words you're rattling off, if I could say one or two of them properly, I'd be proud. Boy, they're big words to say. And again, if you're done with your medication, it's important there's a way to properly dispose of them too, where hopefully it'll cut down the odds of someone grabbing them.
Absolutely. We ask people to take it to one of the safe drop boxes. In Blooming Prairie, it's at the police station, and it's also here in Owatonna at the police station. You can drop them in, just take the label off of it if you want. You don't even have to do that. Just throw them in there, and they'll be properly disposed of. So I would definitely recommend that, because you don't know who's going through your medicine cabinet, and we don't want somebody's addiction to start simply from that experiment. Most kids are not going to a doctor to get it, and most kids are also not getting it from a drug dealer. Most kids that start with prescription drugs, it's coming from a medicine cabinet somewhere.
Can you talk just a little bit about Steele County? I mean, the position you're in, I'm sure you hear things and become aware of things. Prescription drugs in Steele County kids.
Yeah, we still, we're about state average in Steele County, and that's at about, according to survey data, about 6% of the kids said that they've abused prescription drugs in a 30-day period. But this data is old. We're waiting for the new data to come out sometime this fall, and that might have increased. We don't know that yet, but I'm guessing we'll probably go along with state average since we've been following that trend. It is still a growing concern, and again, the reason is the accessibility. If it's available, kids will try it. Kids, they're going to experiment with things, but as prevention measures, we can do something by simply locking them up and removing that access. Because again, a kid that's 15 can't go to a doctor on his own and get a narcotic prescribed. Mom or dad has to be involved in that. So that's not going to happen. And again, most kids are not getting this through a drug dealer. Prescription drugs like those Oxycontins, Vicodin, those are very expensive on the street. It's cheaper for heroin. But kids don't want that normally because that might sound scary, or that's something they've been told not to do. So again, those are coming from that medicine cabinet. Then once that habit is there, if they're addicted, then they'll try whatever they need to in order to feed that addiction.
Okay. I know there's some other things you want to bring up too, and there's a meeting coming up. You want to make sure we are aware of that.
Yes, absolutely. I know we've been talking a lot about prescription drugs, but what I'd like to briefly share is next week on Tuesday, we are hosting a town hall discussion on underage drinking. It's titled Talk, They Hear You, and it is Tuesday, October 11th from 7 to 8 p.m. at the United Prairie Bank Community Room in downtown on Rose Street. And this is something that we really think we need to discuss, because underage drinking is still the number one concern here in Steele County. Our youth are drinking at a higher rate than our state average, and alcohol can be a gateway drug. We hear that a lot used with marijuana, but alcohol may be the most of the gateway drugs, because kids that are drinking alcohol, if they're underage, they generally have to do it in a not so safe environment. And there, people might be doing other drugs, and under the influence, one might try something they wouldn't normally try. So alcohol is not a safe drug. And so at this discussion, we're going to have Steele County use data. We're going to talk about the protective factors we have, and we're going to talk about some of the risk factors we have, as well as we have a parent speaker that's going to talk about their experience with a child that struggled with addiction, and a youth speaker who's going to talk about their journey and how they started, what might have been helpful for them. And then we're going to talk about the initiatives here in the county and what we can do and what this community can do to help prevent underage drinking.
Okay, again, the Tuesday, and where and what time, and anyone can come to, where?
Absolutely. We definitely encourage parents, youth, any of those concerned community members. It is Tuesday, October 11th at 7 o'clock at the United Prairie Bank on Rose Street.
Okay, and we'll try to get Darren in again next month as well. That's our Talk of the Town for today here on AM 1390.